morning, everyone. So before we jump into our portion of the session, I want to go over Broadway's division, one of our continuous improvements when it deals with customer service. So I'm going to read this statement off really quick. Broadway provides courteous, accurate, and timely customer-centered services, creating a positive experience. So to me, as a new right-of-way supervisor, our standards, we developed 4 standards to go along with that statement, and I'm going to go into those to kind of explain what I think right-of-way division, how we can always improve our customer service skills. So one of the standards is being courteous. And as right-of-way division employees, we often have the tough job of not always delivering news everybody wants to hear. So whether we're going to our districts and letting them know that a parcel has now split, and basically the process is starting over, and it may delay your project or even a letting schedule, or we're going to a property owner and explaining to them that a house that their grandfather built and they've lived in all their lives is now going to be part of acquisition. So the news we're delivering is not always happy news, and I think as right-of-way division employees, what we have to remember is we need to be courteous. We need to be kind, we need to be polite, and we need to be respectful no matter the message we're delivering. And even if our customers are getting angry with us, we don't need to project that back on them. We just need to continue to be courteous. And I think that's our number one standard, because it's very important to right-of-way division that we always maintain that. The second one is being conscientious. I'm going to try not to say that word too many times because I will mess it up. So to me, as a right-of-way division employee, you can always count on me no matter what meeting I'm sitting in, no matter what service I'm providing. I'm always going to do what's right. I'm going to do what's right for my customers, for myself, for TxDOT, for the taxpayers. And so you can just count on me to do that. The next standard is being accurate. Not only do you need us to provide you correct and precise information, I don't want to be a dead end. So if you come to me with an issue, I have a wide range of people I can tap into to get you an answer. There are other right-of-way employees, right-of-way supervisors, right-of-way attorneys, and even division headquarter personnel that I can talk to and hopefully come up with an issue or something to resolve your issue. So I should never be a dead end. And the last one is being responsive. So you need me to handle your issues and your services as quickly as possible. It's really frustrating, I know, for me when I'm working on something and I call somebody and they don't answer, and I send an email and I may get a reply a couple of days later. So I don't ever want to be not responding to my districts and my customers, and I always just want to be as responsive as I can, as quickly as possible. So that's our standards. The next slide just shows that our goal is to provide superior service. We want to be the best division at TxDOT. And some of our customers we've identified are our district personnel, administration, and property owners, and there's several other customers that fit along in those smaller groups. So to hold ourselves accountable, our standards are going to be put into our performance management plans. And not only that, it takes a village, and so we need our customers to hold us accountable. And I serve 3 districts, Amarillo, Lubbock, and Odessa, and I hope I've worked with those districts long enough that they feel comfortable enough coming to me and having that open and honest communication and letting me know when I'm not doing something to the best of my ability. I'm a new supervisor, and I always want to get better, and I always want to, eventually I want to be, my districts, I want them to know and feel like they have the best right-of-way staff working for them. So another way that you guys can hold us accountable is on our signature lines. We all have a survey link that you can click on and take a quick survey and give us feedback, whether it's good or bad. We review those, and they're not going to be used as punishment. It's used to get better at what we do. And so I think with customer service, you can always improve, and that's right-of-way division's goal. And I guess on a personal note, so when I started TxDOT in 2001, my grandfather was retiring, and I asked him for the best advice he could give me, and he told me just be the person that everybody can count on to get something done. So that's kind of how I look at customer service, and how I hope my districts, they realize that I can always be a person that they call on, and no matter what it is, I'll try to get it done. So. And I think right-of-way division, we're working on that, and we're eventually going to all get there. So that's the spiel on customer service, and I'll pass it back to Lizeth.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk about district communication, and this is, we have 4 ways that we learn about projects. And the sooner that we learn about projects, the sooner we can get started to acquire right away. So communication is key at the San Antonio District. We talk to everyone there. Sometimes they even run when they see us coming because they know, here comes trouble. Right? One of the ways we learn about the projects is at the quarterly portfolio meeting. Somebody from Right Away always attends to provide TP&D information and also to receive information that we don't already have. We have our monthly right-of-way status meetings with the district where we discuss project-by-project status. We also obtain information on projects, on the deliverables of projects nearing environmental clearance. And this is how, it's the second spreadsheet. It's color-coded, and we have all our projects listed there all the way to 2027. With all the right-of-way CSJs requested already, and all the project estimates are completed, all the way up to 2027. Also, we attend the DDRT meetings where we go over the schematics and receive information also on the projects. Another way we learn about projects is attending the MAPOs or the meetings with affected property owners. Sometimes we get invited when they remember about us, and this is very important because we can get a lot done there. We can get the property owner's information, get their, verify their mailing address, telephone numbers, and that helps us build the rapport with the property owners where they start getting familiar with us, and that helps us at the end when we're negotiating with them. So here's the next one is countdown to environmental clearance. And my job is to prepare all of our agents get ready for environmental clearance. So all of our projects, we start from the beginning, setting up the project. So here's a timeline of the countdown. So first of all, we have the legal descriptions. We need those 6 months prior to environmental clearance. So if we can get those started a year later, it will probably take 6 months to get them, and that gives us 6 months before so we can get ready for that offer. Title commitments, we get them requested as soon as possible, so sometimes even a year before. The consultants, we have the appraisals. We can, as soon as we get the legal description, 6 months prior, we start ordering appraisals. And the current standard for us is a 30-day turnaround for any appraisal report, and that has gotten us into a lot of trouble because we don't give the appraisers enough time to give us a good appraisal report. So the sooner we can get the legal descriptions, the sooner we can get those appraisals in, we have more time to review, and they will be more accurate. The ROAPS providers, which are the right-of-way consultants, we hire them, 4 months prior to environmental clearance, and they have time to review title, work on action plans for title commitments and all that. They can also review legal descriptions. Driving the projects, we learned that what we appraise is not basically what we're building, so that has gotten us also in some trouble with the appraisal report. So in the future, we're going to be driving our projects with our designers to and get them involved early on so we can know exactly what is being built, so we can relay that information to the property owners and to the appraisers. The parcel bidding design, small acquisitions. What needs to happen? We need to start early on so we can, if we can identify small acquisitions, we can possibly get rid of them, or if they find something that can cause a delay later on, we can probably eliminate those parcels if possible. So the sooner we start identifying those, the better, because we can eliminate hard parcels, I guess. Project estimates, we start those, a year in advance. Like I said, we have all our projects set up all the way to 2027. So projects estimate as soon as possible, so we can start talking to the locals about it. And the executed agreements, we need to have that done before environmental clearance. And what I mean about that is we have to have the contribution from the locals before environmental clearance to get started.
Thanks, Lizeth. I'm going to talk about 3 topics that we are trying to get us started as soon as possible. The first one are ordering our title commitments. So in the past, we would wait until property descriptions were received before we would start ordering our title commitments. And we no longer have to do that. We can go ahead and get started as soon as we know we have a project and we have an area identified. We can use the appraisal district website if they have a map that's online to gather property owner information, section and block survey information, and provide that to a title company where we can prepare preliminary title commitments based on the whole property. And as the alignment is set and as we receive property descriptions, then we can refine those title commitments and just get better title commitments in at the end. So up here is an example of a project that I'm working on in the Lubbock district, and I'll use it several more times as example. It's a 262 plus parcel project. It's the largest project I've ever worked on, so it's very important to me, and we're trying to advance as many of the processes as we can because I want to do a really good job at it. So what we did, we were lucky enough to have our surveyor on board and have him prepare draft preambles, and we provided those to the title company. And you'll see in the example that the reason why they're drafted is because the area that we're acquiring, it's X'd out. We didn't know. We just had an alignment. We didn't know how much we needed to buy, but we wanted to go ahead and get title commitments ordered because that's typically a longer process. The next slide shows an example of a Schedule B from a title commitment, and I don't know how many of you actually get to ever see a Schedule B. There's a lot of information that's on this. Every one of those items listed is an instrument that affects your property. So these can range from being utility easements, right-of-way access easements, restrictive covenants, mineral leases, and each one of these items we receive copies of, and we can provide that information to the districts. You can then give this information to the surveyor or your district utility coordinator. When I was the district utility coordinator, not only did I pull utility permits, I would go pull the title commitments to see possible reimbursable utilities. So I would use that information to develop better utility estimates for my right-of-way project estimate, and you could determine a better schedule, because if you have several reimbursable utilities, that typically is a longer process. So it helps develop your schedule. The next topic I'm going to talk about, and what I think is one of the most important ones, are the property descriptions, advancing, getting those as ordered as quickly as possible. As most of you know, right-of-way maps are no longer required for the right-of-way process to get started. We're not saying you still can't get a right-of-way map. We're just asking that you have that as your end deliverable and your initial deliverables, the actual property descriptions. And as you get those in and review those and approve those, you're sending those on to the right-of-way staff so we can complete the right-of-way process. We can get titles started early, we can get appraisals started, but they can't be finalized until we receive those. And as a side note, when it comes to property descriptions, RPLSs, they have a special place in my heart, because one of my favorite bosses, he was an RPLS, and he wouldn't let a property description go out of our office if he didn't go over that with a fine-tooth comb. And a lot of our districts in our area, we're losing our RPLSs. They're retiring, and that knowledge is walking out the door. But the thing the districts need to keep in mind is our property descriptions are our foundation. And just like you wouldn't want to build a house on a faulty foundation, we need to make sure those property descriptions are still held to the high standards that TxDOT has, and that they need to be accurate and legal. So it's really important, if you don't have an RPLS in your district, that whoever's reviewing your property descriptions, that they are reviewing them and holding those to the high standards that we have. So a way that we're asking the districts to get boundary surveys started as soon as the alignment is set. Go ahead and, it's, on some projects, this can be at the 40% schematic. Especially if it's a project that doesn't have many alignment options, you may already know what you need, your alignment, and so that you can go ahead and get the boundary started. And there's a lot of things, that a surveyor can be doing while you're still setting your alignment. He can go and survey the existing right-of-way. There's office work he can be doing. There's work at the courthouse. So there's a lot of things that they could be doing that while you're still setting your alignment. And so we're just asking you guys to get it started as soon as possible. So we talk about, starting it as early as possible, but does it really help? So here's that project in Lubbock, and the top image shows what the traditional timeline would have been if we would have waited until the 100% schematic submittal, which we had just received in September of 2017, and hopefully by December of 2017, we would have had a work authorization issued. But what we actually did, we didn't wait. We went ahead and in February of 2017, ordered our property descriptions. And so I probably didn't make it flashy enough and have enough noise and music, but that's a 10-plus month lead that we received. So that just shoves all the other right-of-way process 10 months, earlier. So it just really helps us out, and I think this is a process that if we start utilizing more, it can really get right-of-way started as soon as possible. The last topic I'm going to talk about is working with your locals on their right-of-way agreements. Every project that we have, or most of our projects in our area, we do have locals that have to participate in the right-of-way costs and utility adjustment costs. And the thing to keep in mind is TxDOT's receiving all this money, but the locals are not. So we need to be going to those guys as soon as possible and presenting them with these future projects, and so that they have time to build their budgets and come up with how they're going to get their money together. So we're asking that the districts sit down with us and we go through our future projects and determine which ones are right-of-way, that'll have right-of-way and utility-only projects. And then right-of-way staff identify out of those projects what are going to have local agreements, so that as a team we can go and meet with these locals and present agreements if we have them, present easements if we have, or estimates if we have them, and get them to thinking how they're going to fund these projects. And another, keep in mind that these agreements take time. There's an example up there of the same Lubbock project. I officially went to the first county commissioner meeting in September 2016 to present them their agreement and their contribution amount, and it took them until September 2017 to actually execute it, so it was a year. And myself and Colin, the TPD in Lubbock, we probably went to every other county commissioner meeting, presenting the agreement, presenting payment options. It's no fault of their own that it took a year. It was a large contribution, and they had to figure out how they were going to pay for it. So we're glad that we finally got it done, but it just shows you that you need to be building that into your timeline. The last slide just shows the different payment options that are available. The first one is what I would call a traditional payment, where the payment's due at the time they execute the agreement. This works well if if the contribution is a small amount or they've had time to budget for the contribution. The next one is land in lieu and cash, and just remember that that does not include county roads or city streets. The last one, which has worked really well in our area, I think the last 6 agreements that I've done have been periodic payments. And so this allows the local to take their contribution amount and spread it over an amount of time where they can make smaller payments. This does require administration approval, so once you get the schedule from the local, there's a special approval form that you fill out and you turn it into Contract Services Division, and they send it on through TxDOT administration for approval. So that can take some time. I think it's been taking about a week and a half. They've actually been much faster than I thought. So the last one is the SIB loan process. And to be honest, I didn't know much about the SIB loan. It was always this TxDOT unicorn. I'd heard of it but never seen it, and so a couple of our locals were actually considering using it. So we had called in the section that takes care of that to come give a presentation. Right-of-way Division doesn't handle the SIB loan. It's handled out of, I believe it's Innovative Finances. They'll actually come in if you need a local, or you have a local that's interested, and they'll give a presentation. And it's a pretty informative one. The thing to remember with that one, that it's an application process, and it does take some time. It needs to get a minute order, and so it does take some time. So to remember to include that in your timeline as well. So that's it for our presentation. There's our contact information. Hopefully we've given you guys some ideas to take back to your districts and start working with your right-of-way staff to get your right-of-way project started as early as possible. I guess, Kyle,
Does anybody have any questions for the panel? If nobody has any questions, there's one question. Here we go.
Can you give, and you may not know, can you give an example of a land in lieu of cash?
So that would be the example of land in lieu of cash. So that could be, if it's a county, if they maybe have a county jail and it's a parcel that we need to acquire, then that could be considered land in lieu of cash. A city, if maybe there's anything that, I don't know, do we call it anything but for road purposes? Is that how we determine the land they can use?
Land in lieu of cash is basically they own property that's not considered right-of-way.
Yeah, right away.
Because if it's considered right-of-way, they can't, it's something we already have the authority to go use. So if it's land in lieu of cash, it has to be something they own other than right-of-way that they are going to give us for the project. Are there any other questions?
Sean, you can't ask a question. All right.
There's a bunch of moving pieces in that schedule that you were talking about. Some of those responsibilities fall to the district, some fall in the right-of-way division. Is there a schedule out there as far as right-of-way division is concerned on when the district needs to be doing their portion of those steps?
What's that?
I don't think there is one, so that's why we have it up here, so you guys can get an idea.
So did everybody hear the question? So the question was, there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of responsibilities in getting projects ready to a place where we can go out and make offers on a property. And there's different roles that are played by right-of-way division and by the districts. And is there a set schedule out there that tells the districts when to get started? Lizeth, can you answer what you said again and into the microphone, please?
I don't think there is a list. That's why we put it out there so everybody can see and get an idea of why we need, legal descriptions and so early on before environmental clearance.
Yeah, there's not a set schedule out there. Every project's a little different, and a lot of this is left up to the discretion of the district. We are constantly going out there with the message of the sooner you can get started on things like your legal descriptions, the sooner you can get your environmental process completed, the sooner we can go actually get started on right-of-way. These two ladies have been up here talking about those steps that are taken to get to the point where we can go and begin to knock on doors and present offers. We've accelerated our schedule by pushing these things back. There used to be a time when we would wait till environmental clearance to do a lot of these steps that they just described. We've pushed that back and started doing these things in parallel with the district getting their environmental clearance completed to help save some time. But there are some things we have to have finished, and like those legal descriptions, the title work and things like that, where we need y'all's help. I'd say, Crystal, did you give a, when Crystal and I were talking about doing this presentation, we were talking about, well, what percent of schematic should we recommend where you go and start your legal descriptions? And I think, Crystal, you were saying 60%?
I said 60 at first.
And I go 30. So just the sooner the better. I know there's some limitations that y'all have as engineers on what y'all can do, but once you get that footprint out there, we can go and start buying it. So.
And I'll add to Bree, every one of my projects that I was a PM on, the first thing I would do was develop a schedule. So I would create something like this. So if you have a right-of-way staff, they're probably developing a schedule that has all these items. You probably just need to ask. They may not know if you care or not, so.
Mr. Cannon?
Yeah, I think basically to answer that question, our research the last 2 years, our aspirational goal is to have 36 months in order to completely acquire right-of-way, pure right-of-way, and utilities adjusted. So working out from any project, we have no less than 36 months to move the process through. There's outliers that would be typical of a project, but more importantly, that would point to the fact that earlier the better. So if you're having a preliminary meeting about schematics forward, right-of-way needs to be involved at the time.
Could everybody hear that? Okay. So So basically what Mr. Cannon was pointing out is that what we're looking to have is 36 months to acquire right-of-way and move utilities prior to letting. And to be able to do that, we have to get started early. So anybody else have any questions? Lizeth, if you could, I want you to follow up on one thing for me. You talked about driving the project with designers, and I hope you threw in utility coordinators in there as well. Can you go into a little bit more detail on that? Because that's a practice we really want to start getting into doing on our projects is driving it and going out there and looking, seeing what's happening early on when we know what, point A and point B of a project. Can you go into a little more detail on what you're looking for when you're making that drive?
Okay, so when we drive the projects, there are several things that we're looking for. One of the things, one of the things is we're looking for the depth of the acquisition. Why is that important? We need to know how far back we're going, if there's any improvements that are going to be damaged, if there's loss of parking, if we might need to relocate somebody because we're going and hit their house or their business. So those things are important, and also it also helps us getting our estimates done. We are looking for access. Is it going to remain the same? Are they going to lose access? So we have to make sure that we compensate them if they're losing a driveway. So those are really good things that we're looking for. We also look for outdoor advertisement signs. We need to go back to the office and find out who owns that sign, who we're going to make the offer to. Do they have a permit? Do they not? So all those things, small acquisitions. We recently, we were reviewing a project that had a lot of small acquisitions. Those are costly for us and time-consuming because we have to pay an appraiser, get a title commitment, and those are expenses. If we can avoid those small parcels, it's better for us because if we have a $1,000 offer and they have to pay thousands of dollars in property taxes before closing, that can be a delay because the property owners might not have the money to close and give us clear title at the end. We also learned other possible delays, like we recently had a post office moved. We've been working with them for years. And there's a picture of it. We learned that working with the federal government is not as fast as we would like to. We actually had to wait.
Talking to the mic, please.
We had to wait for them to move years later. So we had to construct the highway. You can see there, we had to go around. The road stopped. And so now that they're out of the property, we can finish that project and connect the straight line to the other straight line on the other side.
Yeah, what we're looking for on these drives is to identify those parcels that are going to take us longer, cost us more. And you'll hear later on in some of the presentations about the need to also identify utilities early on in a project. And we want to have these conversations as early as we can in a project. So if there's a chance to design around them, you can. So you don't have to have a go around of a post office to wait for the federal government to move out of your way on their own time. So thank y'all, ladies. I appreciate it.